Hello my beautiful mythical creatures, Ace here, he, she, back at you with another Podfic, and today we're doing Kaijin by Namadi on AO3. We're doing chapter 12. Trigger warnings and link to the fanfic will be in the description like normal. And on with the chapter. Chapter 12. Found. Summary. Shota and Hizashi noticed a familiar quirk, and the powers finally remember a crucial rule of the universe. Izuku cannot have nice things. Trigger warnings. Fighting, injuries, mention of alcoholism, drug use, and attempted sexual assault. If you do not like those, if you cannot handle those for your own mental health, please click off the video. And yeah, I'll figure out a way to summarize the chapter. Continuing on. I'm home, Shota called as he closed the door. He kicked off his boots and hung his capture weapon on the hook. There was a delicious smell coming from the kitchen and soft music playing down the hall, likely from Zashi's home studio. Hey, Dad. Hitoshi popped his head into the entryway. He was wearing an apron with paw prints on it. Dinner's almost ready. Hope you like spice. A second head with spiky blonde hair appeared above Hitoshi. Brat. Shota growled, his customary greeting to the explosive teen. Hobo, Katsuki replied as he normally did. Go tell Loudmouth to stop the goddamn American pop music and get ready for dinner. Katsuki disappeared again, likely to add more chili to whatever they were making. Shota wasn't worried. The kid was a little shit, but he wasn't a monster. He always made a separate dish for himself. What does he call no? Shota asked as he ruffled his son's hair. Being able to have those casual touches without Hitoshi flinching made him feel warm. It had taken months for the teen to fully believe that they would never hurt him, especially Shota, who spent so much time away. Detective snitch, Hitoshi answered. Shota suppressed a snort. As if summoned, the door opened and now shuffled in, shedding his coat and hat as he entered. Something smells good, he commented. The boys made mapo tofu, Hizashi said as he appeared from the hall. He gave each his husbands a kiss and Hitoshi made a gagging noise. It earned him a playful smack to the back of the head. It's ready, get your asses to the table, the angry blonde yelled. The family made their way to the dining room. The meal was full of light conversation as the brainwasher, walking bomb, voice hero, and detective caught Shota up on what he missed over the week he was gone. Soon he was being interrogated about his mission. Were you checking in on Kaijin again? Hitoshi asked. He had been fascinated with the vigilante ever since Shota had explained why he frequently spent so much time away from home. About a month after taking Hitoshi in, the purple net had gotten comfortable with Zashi and had even started calling Zashi Pops, but was still skittish around Shota. Hitoshi had been reverting to nervous politeness whenever addressing Shota, and the hero couldn't hide the hurt he felt from the ever-observant Now. The detective pulled him aside after dinner for a private conversation. I think you need to tell him why you keep leaving, Now had explained. I know your work with Kaijin is complicated, but I think he's worried you don't want him. He thinks that taking him in was mine and Zashi's idea, and you're just along for the ride." It made sense. Shota had just met Kaijin around the time they fostered Hitoshi. He didn't get to meet his new son for over a week. Since then, he's been disappearing for a couple days to a week at a time with no explanation. That night, Shota had knocked on Hitoshi's door and asked to talk. The boy was nervous as Shota sat at the edge of his bed. "Do you know who Kaijin is?" he stated. He started. "The cryptid? He's a ghost or a demon or something, isn't he? He eats evildoers." Shota couldn't help but chuckle, only to stop when Hitoshi looked away, embarrassed. He thought he was being laughed at. "That's what they say, but in reality, he's a vigilante." "A vigilante?" the teen questioned, leaning a little closer to Shota with interest. "One of the heroes from my agency made contact with him a few months ago. He has a very powerful transformation ability that lets him take on animal traits. He can mix and match them, so when people caught sight of a winged and horned boy with cat ears and rabbit legs, they initially thought he was a monster." Hitoshi was paying close attention, his eyes wide, as he learned the truth about the mysterious creature he had only heard about through whispered rumors. "I met Kaijin around the time Katsuki introduced you to Zashi. That's why I wasn't here." Shota turned towards the purple net and held his gaze, desperate for the kid to understand. "The day Zashi brought you home, he called Now and I. We were worried about you, but so excited that you wanted to be our kid. We all remember what it was like to be an outcast, so we jumped on the opportunity to be the people we needed when we were younger. I wanted to come home right away, but I knew you had Noi and Zashi, and even Katsuki. I knew you were being fed and had a warm bed and had a home where you would be loved and start to heal." Hitoshi watched Shota closely, a feeble hope shining in his eyes. "But Kaijin, he's about your age. He doesn't have any of that. We all assume he was an adult because he was so skilled, but he's just a kid. I visit every couple of weeks because I'm trying to convince him and his two partners to join a hero school and get licensed." "Why won't they?" Hitoshi asked. Shota sighed. "If you want to be a hero, you need to understand hero society isn't perfect. Sometimes we fail and people suffer. The rumors about Kaijin started about 6 years ago. We think he's been living on the streets since he was 6 or 7 years old. Kaijin and his partner Oben and Henya needed saving, but no one helped them, so they saved themselves. They don't believe that any hero wants to help after all this time." Hitoshi bit his lip and mulled over Shota's words. No doubt he was comparing it to his own experiences, realizing just how easily he could have gone down that path. Shota understood because Shota had been Hitoshi. He had been Kaijin. "Hitoshi," Shota said, pulling the teen from his own thoughts. "I'm not spending time away because I don't want a kid. It's because I can see you getting better and I'm so proud of you. You are strong and you have support. We'll be here for you." Hitoshi sniffled and wiped away his tears. Wiped away his ears, oh my goodness. Hitoshi sniffled and wiped away his tears before they could fall. "You really want me?" Shota moved closer and slowly put his hand up to the wild purple hair and watched for any signs of discomfort. I really, really do, he promised. Hitoshi leaned into the touch. I'm sorry I've been so... Hey, you don't need to apologize. Shota interrupted. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about my mission sooner. I'm not the only one trying to recruit the problem trio, so I keep my contact to them secret. Only Noi, Zashi, and the hero that first made contact know what I've told you. So can I trust you keep it a secret too? Even from Katsuki? Hitoshi asked. Shota sighed. He knew Hitoshi's friendship with the angry blonde was important to him. Shota would be lying if he said he wasn't fond of the kid or grateful for him for looking out for their son. Next time Katsuki is over, we'll tell him. I think it would be a good lesson on the importance of confidentiality. Hitoshi smiled and yawned, lulled by the gentle fingers running through his hair. Time for bed. You have school and training tomorrow. I'll be teaching you some new fighting techniques. Shota couldn't help but grin when Hitoshi's eyes lit up. He scrambled to bury himself under the covers. Night, Hitoshi. Night, Dad. Shota shut the door and flicked an eavesdropping Hizashi in the forehead before he could tease, but the smile never left his face. Yeah, Shota replied to his son's question, pulling his thoughts back to the present. I was touching base with Night Jumper. Kaijin hasn't been active lately, and Jumper was worried he had gotten hurt. Has he? Zashi asked, concerned for the vigilante kid he had never met. If the 6-on-1 group takedown I witnessed is any indication, he's just fine, Shota assured him. Oh? What did he do this time? Hitoshi asked excitedly. Claws. He always uses claws and rabbit legs, Katsuki said, starting a little game they always play when Kaijin comes up. Both boys were fascinated by the vigilante and made no secret of the fact that they hoped Shota could convince Kaijin to join UA. Hitoshi wanted to meet him, and Katsuki wanted to fight him. Spider legs and wings, Hitoshi added. Feathered or bat? Noi asked, feeding into their competition. Feathered. They're faster, Hitoshi clarified. Everyone looked at Shota. No wings, he revealed, causing Katsuki to direct a victorious grin at Hitoshi, who kicked him under the table. They had guns, and Kaijin knew his wings would be a big target. You also missed horns. He broke one of the bastard's nose with a leaping headbutt. Language show! Zashi scolded. Everyone laughed. Are you back for the entrance exam then? Katsuki asked, popping a cube of tofu into his mouth. Sho will be the heroics homeroom teacher this year, Hizashi said. So he can't get out of it, Noi teased. Shota grumbled. He had only been a teacher for 3 years. He did not feel ready to have a homeroom, but if he took the job now, he would be able to get Hitoshi and Katsuki in his class when they applied. They finished dinner and cleaned up the dishes. Katsuki was staying over, so he and Hitoshi started a Smash tournament, with strict orders from now to go to bed before 10. Okay, Pa. But you know Cat will go to bed at 8:30 like an old man, Hitoshi teased, resulting in his character getting a hammer to the face and thrown off the platform. Shota sat in front of a bank of monitors showing off various angles of 5 cities below. 1, 2, and 3-pointer robots were already mulling around. The bulk were patrolling the streets furthest from the gate. The faster students would be able to take advantage of that if they did not get distracted on their way in. Several other large clusters were scattered around in out-of-the-way locations where applicants who did thorough searches could rack up points. Of course, there were plenty smaller rogue packs throughout the testing round area. Of course, there were also plenty of smaller rogue packs throughout the testing area. Zashi was off announcing the rules for the practical portion of the exam. Cementos was putting the final touches on a couple arenas, and Recovery Girl was in her mobile clinic down on ground level, so it was only Shota, Vlad King, Snipe, Namuri, Powerloader, and Nezu in the booth. See anyone promising? Vlad King asked as he shuffled through the summarized printouts of the applicants' records. I prefer to base my opinion on their skills. It's more logical, Shota said, leaning back in his chair and wished he could pull out his sleeping bag. Vlad grumbled something about seniority and knowing better. The buses started arriving, and soon Zashi and Cementos entered the booth. The cameras on the entrance of the 5 testing zones showed the prospective new students mulling about. "All right, listeners," Zashi yelled into the mic. "Start." Shota noted which students ran in without hesitation. He was disappointed that only a couple dozen out of almost 300 knew there was no countdown in a real fight. "What's wrong? There's no countdown in a real fight. Run! Run!" Everyone took off, struggling through the bottleneck of the gates and charging into the city. Each student had a dedicated feed, and an AI program tracked them through thousands of cameras strategically scattered across the testing grounds. Shota saw some powerful quirks, but little control. He flagged the worst cases. If they made it in, they would need serious quirk counseling. A few students were demonstrating impressive fighting skills, even if they're a little too predictable. It was understandable if they had been practicing in the same dojo all their life. Some varying in their sparring partners could correct that. He noted their numbers. A girl with long periwinkle hair caught Shota's eye. She used small blast of energy to boost her movement and hit the robots point blank to crush their armor. She not only had good control, but she had obviously put time into learning how to be more graceful. Her number down. Does anyone know the protocol for this? Vlad King asked, gesturing to one of his screens. A few clicks on the master keyboard, Nezu put the feed on the big monitor. A couple of the heroes averted their eyes. Namuri cackled. "That's unfortunate," Zashi muttered. A blonde boy was surrounded by robots. He was completely naked. Shota watched as a couple of the 2-pointers shot lasers at the kid, but the beams passed through him. He ran to the closest robot and stuck his hand through the bottom of its cases. The base frame of a motor vehicle or other wheeled like it wasn't there. The robot jerked wildly and powered down. He scrambled its wires, Power Loader announced, tapping away on a tablet. The boy repeated the process for every robot he came across. Not a single attack touched him, always passing through like he was a ghost. Shota wrote the kid's number down. His quirk appeared to let him selectively phase through things. It was unbelievably versatile, and he seemed smart enough to bring it to its full potential. Shota did make a note to get him a DNA-infused uniform, though. Moving to another feed, Shota found a couple dozen applicants he immediately eliminated. They were panicking, either running around aimlessly or hiding somewhere. He watched one of them, a boy with moth antennas, run from a one-pointer straight into one of the larger robot attacks. Several laser cannons trained on the frozen kid, but something long and flexible from off camera and jerked him back behind cover. Adjusting a wider angle, Shota saw a boy with deep indigo hair and pointed ears drop the moth kid on the ground. He had octopus tentacles coming off his fingers. Octoboy stepped into the street and immediately attacked a three-pointer. One of his hands changed into a giant shell that took the brunt of the hit, where the tentacles went to work, tearing the robot to threads, and chasing until its programming told it there was too much damage and shut down. 4 one-pointers and a couple two-pointers raced towards the kid, but he sprouted wings and leaped over them. He hooked his tentacles around the taller robot's neck and wrenched them backwards as he landed on the head of a one-pointer, ripping into it with massive bird tentacles. Shota couldn't take his eyes off the screen, but noticed Sashi out of the corner of his eyes. He was watching the same feed with a shocked expression. "You're seeing this, right?" Shota asked. Hisashi nodded. "It's not." "No, they're completely different animals, and the build is wrong, but his quirk." Shota trailed off. They thought Kaijin's quirk was unique, but here was this kid with an eerily similar ability. Shota dug through his previously ignored information packets and found applicant 12, Yamajiki Tamaki. "Nezu," Shota called, turning to his old sensei. "Applicant 12. I want him." Vlad King sputtered, trying to explain that's not how they did things, but was cut off. "I thought you might Aizawa-kun," Nezu said, taking a sip of tea, his beady eyes sparkling mischievously. Of course the rat knew about Kaijin and Shota's contact with him. He had set this up. "I'll need to talk to him," Shota said. "I'll make the arrangements," the mammal agreed. A few weeks later, Shota was in Nezu's office awaiting the arrival of Yamajiki and his parents. The kid had more than enough points to qualify him for the hero course, and Shota had no trouble getting him into UA despite Vlad's protests. The rat god had declared it after all. Nezu recorded all the acceptance videos for the successful hero applicants and added a bit at the end of Amajiki asking him and his guardians to attend a meeting at UA. "They're here," Nezu announced. The door to his office opened on its own, revealing a nervous-looking Yamajiki, a woman with white hair and pointed ears, and a single thin horn protruding from her forehead, and a man with black hair, round glasses, and purple eyes, who had his hand raised to knock. "Please come in. It's a pleasure to meet you," Nezu greeted, drawing their attention to 3 cushioned chairs in front of his desk. Principal Nezu, to what do we owe the pleasure? The woman asked as she sat down, her husband and son doing the same. Nothing to worry about. Your son's quirk caught the attention of one of my staff. He wanted to talk. Tea? Nezu held up a teapot that had certainly not been there before and filled 4 cups. Knowing his former pupil preference of coffee, he did not offer Shota any. Thank you, the elder Yamajiki said, their son accepting the cup silently, his eyes trained on the floor. This is Ayazawa Shota, he introduced, gesturing to the underground hero leaning against the wall nearby. He will be young Yamajiki's homeroom teacher during the coming school year. Shota gave a polite nod. The woman returned it. I'm Yamajiki Yonkon. This is my husband Yamajiki Minato, and of course you know our son Tamaki. Please feel free to use our given names for the purpose of this discussion. Of course, Yonkon-san, Nezu said. I must confess, I'm overflowing with curiosity. What is this about? She asked. First, I must stress that nothing said here can leave this room, Nezu warned. This meeting portrays to a rather delicate case Ayazawa-san is currently working on. Shota stepped forward. Almost a year ago, a colleague of mine made contact with a vigilante by the name of Kaijin. You may know him by his reputation as a demon or monster, but he is, in fact, a human with a powerful transformation ability. Due to Kaijin's young age, we have been trying to enroll him in a reform program here at UA, but we know nothing of his civilian identity. Normally, we would use the quirk registry, but Kaijin is unregistered, and until the entrance exam, we believed his ability was unique. Kaijin's quirk allows him to borrow animal traits. If he is touching a DNA source, he keeps various pieces of jewelry on him, made of bone or fur. Amajiki's quirk appears very similar to Kaijin's. So we hope you could give us some insight that will help. I hope you're not suggesting that you believe my son is a vigilante, Moto asked. No, Tamaki-kun is not under suspicion, Nezu assured him. He is actually too old to be Kaijin, if you can believe it. Tamaki is only 14. Surely the vigilante can't be younger. Yonkon stated, obviously horrified by the indication. Our estimation is 12, Shota informed them. The couple looked at each other and clasped hands, agreeing that they would do something to help. What do you need from us? Let's start by having young Tamaki tell us about his quirk. Everyone turned to the teen, who seemed to fold in on himself, but he spoke in barely a whisper. Manifest traits, food, Nezu nodded, his advanced hearing able to pick up what Tamaki had said, but Shota was lost. I apologize. Our son has extreme anxiety and finds it hard to talk to new people, Yonkon explained before turning to her son. It's okay, honey. No one is going to judge you. They need to know about your quirk to help this boy. Tamaki seemed to still be struggling. Shota walked around the desk and crouched in front of the teen. Hey, kid. I know you don't know me, but we're going to work a lot together this year. I need your help. I want to get this kid and his friends off the street, but I can't do that if I don't know who he is. Your quirk is the only clue I have. It was when Shota mentioned friends that he noticed the teen relax. He looked up, still not meeting Shota's eyes, but much more determined. My quirk is manifest. I can take on the traits of things I eat. It works best with animals from the protein in my food, but I can technically eat anything and be able to use it. Shota nodded encouragingly. Tamaki's quirk was very similar to what they know of Kaijins, but different enough that they wouldn't have flagged it in the search of quirk registries. Tamaki is the first in the family to develop a quirk like this. Yonko added, most of us have creature-related quirks, but it's always one animal or type of animal. There's never been an Amajiki that could call on multiple at one time. I take it Yamajiki is your family name, Yon Ikon-san? Yes, we are an old family and take a certain pride in the name. May I ask about your quirks? Nezu addressed the older Yamajikis. I'm a bit of an amateur quirk analysis and find myself intrigued. Shota shot a look at his old sensei. What was Nezu playing at? He was more than an amateur. He was the top of the field. Tamaki's activation requirements come from me, Moto said. I can identify any substance by ingesting it. I am immune to all known toxins, and my digestive system is significantly stronger than the average person. The animal aspect comes from the Yamajiki side. Young Kon continued. Like I said, creature quirks run in my family. There's a whole branch of our family tree that has primarily aquatic quirks and other that's mostly insect based. My siblings and I went the mythical route. My quirk is unicorn. I have a healing ability centered in my horn. She gestured to the spiraled ivory horn on her head. I dare say the Yamajiki quirk factor may be reaching singularity, Nezu mused. I predict quirks like Yamajiki will be more common in your family over the next few generations. Nezu sipped his tea. His eyes flicked to Shota for a moment. The hero felt like he was missing something. Where was Nezu going with this? Knowing that the Yamajiki bloodline may start curling out powerful quirk users in the coming year did not help his investigation, even if the fact that Tamaki was the first to develop an upgraded ability was interesting. Shota idly wondered if he would see some of his cousins coming through UA with similar quirks in the next few years. Shota paused. An idea slammed into him like a lightning strike. Tamaki may be the first of his generation, but he may not be the only one. Is there a possibility Kaijin is a Yamajiki? He asked, barely letting his mind process the theory before posing his question. All three looked at him in confusion before understanding dawned. I could see why you may think that Aizawa-san, but we're a tight-knit family. I would know if one of my nieces or nephews was missing. What about your brother, the one that was disowned? Tamaki asked, his voice quiet. Yonkun's eyes darkened. We do not speak of him, she hissed, her bright, polite voice suddenly full of anger and sorrow. My brother was a delinquent. He was always getting into trouble. Fighting, partying, womanizing. He started drinking and doing drugs in high school. My parents finally kicked him out when he was arrested for public quirk use and assault. He put a woman who rejected his advances into the hospital with several burns. What was his quirk? Shota asked. Dragon. He could breathe fire and had heat resistance. Where is he now? No idea. We got a wedding invitation from him just before Tamaki was born, but no one went. We never heard from him again. Do you remember who he married? Yonkon frowned as she racked her brain for the name that was printed on a frilly card. It had to do something with color, didn't it? Moto suggested. Aka, Kuro, Midori. That's it! Young Kon gasped. Midoriya! Shota felt like the ground had just been yanked out from under him. Midoriya Inko? He asked, praying it was a coincidence. Yes, how'd you know? Does that mean something to you? Shota had to grab Nezu's desk to stay on his feet. He was sure he was pale and probably looked insane by the way his eyes widened and his breath hitched. Shota-kun, I'm afraid I'm at a loss, Nezu said softly. Please calm down and explain. Shota buried his face in his capture weapon and ran a shaky hand through his hair. He focused on his breathing too slow before attempting to speak. This may be difficult to hear, he said to the Yamajiki family. 6 years ago, as a part of a task force investigating a spike in missing quirkless people, my partner was called to the residence of one Midoriya Inko after she reported her son as a runaway. An investigation revealed that she had been abusing the boy most of his life and sold him to the Yakuza when he was diagnosed quirkless. Shota paused, wrestling with the first fact that blew a hole in his whole sound theory. Izuku was quirkless. Tamaki seemed to be thinking along the same lines. You have to be wrong, he said, pushing his anxiety aside for the hope that his cousin hadn't gone through what Shota was describing. That boy was quirkless. Was his diagnosis due to a toe joint? Nyankun asked. Shota nodded. God damn it, she swore. I've been trying to officially disprove that theory for years. All people with creature-based quirks have that toe joint. Tamaki and I have it. People think the toe joint is an indicator for quirklessness because it disappeared when quirked humans evolved. Things like the appendix were useless addition to the human autonomy, so they started to fade away with each generation. People with creature-based quirks are evolverally closer to build to humans from 200 years ago. We can have appendages and wisdom teeth. We are subjectively to contain illnesses the average quirked person is immune to, and often have the second toe joint. Why is this not commonly known? Surely the medical community would be aware of it, Shota asked. The data is skewed because most people with creature quirks have a physical mutation, so they never get the X-ray that people with emitters or mental quirks do, she explained. There's still no guarantee that your brother fathered Inko's child. We don't even know if they went through with the wedding. What was your brother's name? Nezu asked, pulling his keyboard closer to him. Yamajiki Hizashi. Nezu typed in the name and hit enter. His usual relaxed fell. I'm sorry, but Midoriya Inko had a DNA test done in an attempt to get child support. Yamajiki Hazashi is the father of Midoriya Izuku. Yonko gasped, her hands going to her mouth as her eyes shone. Shota heard Tamaki softly whisper, I have another cousin? Causing his father to grip his shoulder comfortingly. Shota-kun, I believe you should call whichever colleague you have watching Kaijin. This young man has been through enough, Nezu said. His fur was puffed up and teeth were showing. Shota nodded and marched towards the door, pulling out his phone. He quickly found Night Jumper's number and hit it. No answer. Shota growled and rang again. Just as it was about to go to voicemail, Jumper picked up. Eraser? Jumper, do you have eyes on Kaijin? Eraser. We have a break in the case. I know who Kaijin is. I need you to, Aizawa, set up a meeting with all three. Do you remember? Shota! The use of his given name made Shota snap his mouth closed. He heard voices in the background calling out to each other, and the sound of shifting debris. That noise had haunted his nightmares since his second year at UA. Shota, Jumper repeated, sounding exhausted. Something happened. Izuku distracted himself by helping getting the younger kids ready for bed. Manguri was gathered in the dining room, sipping hot chocolate or tea. It had been unusually cold and rainy that day, and everyone was enjoying the warm beverage in quiet company. Himi and Dabi were out looking for Shigaraki. The bar he was staying in was clear across their territory, so Izuku didn't expect them to be back for another hour. Izuku hoped he hadn't ruined everything by pushing the teen. Shigaraki needed help, and they were running out of time, but this kind of long-term mental conditioning would be difficult to break. He forcefully pulled himself out of his tribular thoughts before he could start mumbling. A few of the older kids were still training, so Izuku left to the relaxing atmosphere in the kitchen to head down the hall to convince them to turn in for the night. Izuku entered the lobby they had kept it full of old junk and construction debris to make the theater look abandoned. The only thing they moved was scaffolding draping in plastic sheets to hide the hallway from anyone who may peek or wander in. Izuku paused. He could have sworn he saw movement. A hazy form briefly flashed in view behind the glimmering plastic. He strained his ears but only heard silence. His instinct screamed, there shouldn't be silence. He should have heard the plastic crinkling, the voices of kids in the dining hall, the thud of sparring in the training room. He peeked through the gap in the scaffolding and found himself face to face with a man with large, round ears like radar dishes, wearing a ski mask. Activating horn, Izuku surged up towards the taller figure and head-butted him under the chin. He crumpled instantly, pulling the plastic down as he fell, revealing about a dozen thugs in dark clothes and masks standing in the lobby. The knocked out man must have had a sound cancelling quirk because Izuku could suddenly hear. The intruders cried out in anger and surprise, and Izuku heard the click of weapons being readied. Breach! Izuku shouted. He activated as many abilities as he could, readying himself to fight. "Everyone out! We're under attack!" The bang of gunfire split in the air, causing Izuku to dive behind the ticket counter. The kids screamed. He glanced down the hall and saw Thos and her nanny squad herding the kids into the bunk room towards the emergency exit. One of the kids had the ability to create a realistic-looking constructions and had disguised the back alley with a brick wall. Izuku prayed it wasn't compromised. 3 older kids started running towards the lobby. Izuku deliberately waved them off, but a thug dove over the counter, reaching for him. Izuku grabbed the man's arms and hurled him to the ground. He slammed their head into the cabinets. "Go back! Protect the kids!" he yelled at his wannabe rescuers. A flash of bullets flew overhead, tearing up the drywall. But Izuku was relieved when he saw the 3 teens turn back through the haze of falling dust. Short-lived, however, when he heard a cry behind him. "Kaijin!" Archie, Mota, and the horn kid, Akuma, had run out of the training room right into the chaos. Izuku moved faster than he ever had before, dashing across half the lobby and flung himself in front of the teens. He screamed as 2 bullets impacted the scale in his back and shoulder, but he continued to push the trio into the cover of the hall, wrapping his feather rings around him like a shield. "Are you okay?" Mata asked. Izuku grinded his teeth, the painful sting still lingering, and he could feel several scales had cracked. "The armor is bullet-resistant, not bullet-proof," he mumbled to himself. "We can help," Akuma said, holding up his fists. "Yeah, we can fight," Artie agreed. "No!" Izuku snapped. He heard a pair of footsteps run towards him. As the thugs turned the corner, Izuku speared them through the shoulder with Spider and flung them away. The teens suddenly looked appropriately scared. "Get everyone into the tunnels," Izuku ordered. "Go to the safe house and stay there until we can come and get you." "But—" There was a scream and a bright flash. Izuku spun around to see three thugs down the bunker room hall, scrambling and covering their eyes. Theo's hands were lit up as she struggled against the 4th man, who grabbed her wrists and shaking his head to clear his vision. "Go now!" he roared as Artie, Muta, and Akuma before launching himself towards Thos. He scrambled across the lobby on his spider legs and boosted himself using wings. Gunfire rained down on him. He tried his best not to cry out as more of his armor cracked and feathers were blasted off, but he couldn't help but gasp in pain when a bullet grazed his hip, where scales were weaker, and another tore through the fleshy part of his calf. He made it to the hall and barreled into the thugs, tearing at them with his claws and knocking them away. His injured leg burned, but he activated Rabbit and kicked the one holding Thos in the head. "Get to the safe house," he yelled at her, his ears swiveling and eyes darting everywhere, awaiting the next attack. "Ara!" Thos yelled. Izuku's heart stopped. Where was Ara? "I'm here!" Ara ran out of Himi's and Izuku's room. She had Kaski cupped in her hands. The last of the attackers rounded the corner. One lit up with lightning. Another's fingernails had grown into long, deadly points. The rest charged down the hall, either empty-handed or with weapons ready. Bullets tore up the carpet as Izuku and the girls burst into the bunk room. It was empty. All kids had already escaped out the back door. Izuku ushered Thos and Ara across the theater with his hands on their backs, but was ripped away when a black cord wrapped around him. "Keep going!" he yelled, turning back and raking his claws across the face of the closest thug. Someone put their arms around him and squeezed tightly, so he manifested quills, causing them to yelp and jump away. He pulled off a couple spines and stabbed the woman with nails in the chest. She cut him deeply across the arm. Izuku danced through the attackers, stabbing, kicking, and slashing at anything that moved. His instincts to fight, to protect, coursed through him. He growled and spit and bared his fangs, attacking with a feral energy that urged him to draw as much blood as possible. Finally, he heard the emergency door slam. The girls made it safely out. It was time to go. Black wings unfurled. Izuku kicked off a muscular guy, sending him tumbling and shot into the air. The double doors were wide open, so he tucked in his wings and dove for freedom. His body seized, all his muscles locked up, and he couldn't control his wings. Izuku plummeted to the ground. He crashed into the seats and bounced to the floor, groaning in pain. The thug with the electricity quirk leaned over him, his eyes shining gleefully as he grabbed Izuku's shoulder and delivered another shock. Izuku withered. Every one of his injuries burned. He tasted blood as he bit the inside of his cheek. When the sensation stopped, all the vigilante could do was gasp for breath. He was exhausted and injured. His whole body twitched, and refused to follow his commands. Black encroached his vision. "Very good," a rumbling voice said. Izuku looked up into the flickering yellow eyes of a man made of mist. "I'll deliver Kaijin to your boss as promised. I suggest you collect your wounded and leave as soon as possible." The ground disappeared and Izuku fell into an endless void. He only heard silence, not Dobby's bellowing of rage when he and Himi came back to their empty and destroyed home, and were attacked by the unfortunate criminals that couldn't get away fast enough. He only saw darkness, not how Himi's eyes went manic as she slashed and stabbed her way through them, screaming for Zuzu. He only felt cold and pain, not the heat of the blue inferno that ripped through the theater, burning everything to ash. He was alone, not with the ministry, when Dobby and Himi opened the doors of the safe house, praying their little brother was there, only for everyone to realize their hero was gone. They were too late. That is the end of chapter 12. Chapter 13 will be up next. And here's the title and summary. Chapter 13. Man Gauge of Misery. Summary. Everyone deals with the aftermath, and Izuku wakes up in an unfamiliar place. Again. The trigger warnings and why does this one hit so hard? The trigger warnings and link will be in description like normal. I don't know if I said this in the last video, but I'm going to say in this one. I'm hoping by the end of October, earliest by the end of October, latest by the end of December, I am hoping to have a very exciting announcement. But until then, my beautiful mythical creatures, peace out, stay hydrated, and eat donuts. Bye bye!